hear. Super, thank you. Got it. Okay, so ideally, what we want to do is establish an environment in the home where everybody has their say. Everybody's going to be able to voice their opinion, express their feelings. That doesn't always happen. And when we are not allowed, for whatever the reason, to express our emotions, we wind up having a lot of difficulties in the family unit. Many times, it's the kids that suffer. And 90% of the time, it's the kids that suffer. I'm not saying the parents don't suffer either, they do, but it depends what kind of relationship and what kind of dysfunctional relationships are happening between everybody that's part of the family. As you're going to see, there's different types of dysfunctions. There's the authoritarian manner. There's the parents who kind of hide in the corner. And we'll get into that. But every behavior and every way of expression affects the child. So far, do you agree with me, or do you think that no, this is not the way that it is, and I'm completely lost?
I agree.
I'm totally agree with you, Dr. Frank.
Yeah. Okay. Have you seen it in your own family?
Yes.
You have.
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty. So I want you to feel comfortable enough to be able to, if you want to share, but at least comfortable enough to maybe share some things that you've experienced, some things that you don't understand, some things that you wish would change as we go through these PowerPoints. You can stop me at any time, okay? And let's just talk. Let me see what you're thinking about and where you're at with this, okay? So these things are very common. These things you already know in terms of supportive environments and the way that families communicate. This third one here is extremely important because communication patterns, depending on how they are, and depending on how children interpret those patterns and also internalize what is being said into their own personality, it can be detrimental or it can be extremely supportive. So in the family unit, we're always hoping that the parents are going to be very supportive and truly understand what the kids are going through, the way that they understand, the way they conceptualize the world. Some parents, for whatever reasons, have difficulty with that. They have difficulty in expressing what they're feeling. And many parents also don't realize that it's okay to share with a child. You know, my parents were very old school, so I knew my parents the way that I knew them. You know, I didn't know too much about their background, you know, and they were pretty strict, you know, with me. I grew up to be okay, you know, it worked fine for me. For some other kids, maybe not, you know. So we have to understand each relationship within the family unit individually. Okay, I don't like to really generalize, although the research in research we do generalize a lot. You know, unless you're doing a type of research that's, for example, phenomenological, where we have a smaller case, you know, to look at. But most of the information that we get is from a huge population. Okay, and again, can we generalize? Yes and no. All right. So the child's expressions and their feelings and their needs are just as important to understand as your own, and it's just as important for the child to understand your feelings as well. If it's one-sided, I don't know if that works too well. What do you think from your experience?
Yes, that's right. If it's one-sided.
If it's one-sided, what's that?
It's not working well when it's only for one side. One is understands, and another one is not.
Right. Okay. So I think for the most part, you're right. It's not good when it's one-sided, but now we run into an issue because who's the side that we're looking at? Who's the side that we're trying to understand? Are we trying to understand the side of the parents, or we're trying to understand the side of the children, or is it both equal? And this is a very important question for us to try to address, simply because it now enters the personality of the parents. And what we have to deal with here at this point is how the parents were brought up, right? So then we go back and we say, well, how did your parents' how were they brought up? And it goes back and back and back and back. So this could be a cultural thing, okay? Or maybe not. So we have to investigate, we have to try to figure out not who's at fault, but what is it that just isn't working within the family unit. Okay.
Dr. Frank, I have a question. When you say child, do you mean our adult children now that they are already using, or when they were like small children, 5-6-year-olds, and how we should have been more aware of their feelings and needs?
Right. It's usually, Maria, when they were younger. It's usually when they were young. Yeah. Yeah. Now, look, I'm going to say it and then I'm going to take it back. I want to say that once they start using, it's too late, but that's not true. You see what I mean? It's not true. It's just that for us to begin to change how we were with them before is impossible. That's already happened. It's already in the past. So you can't change what happened in the past. You could try to change now and understand more, which is what everybody's trying to do. Okay, but we have to accept what happened. Okay, so that's important, because not that it's blaming the parent, but it's bringing more of an awareness. What did I do? How did I do it? And am I doing it now? That's basically what I'm trying to kind of get across here. Okay.
So you said, sorry for interrupting. So you said to bring awareness, but in my understanding, the damage is done. My son is already 34 years old. I can't go back to when he was 5 years old and fix it. And
that's it. That's my point.
What can I do now?
That's the point exactly. Okay, we can't go back and change that. What's done is done. Okay, but the awareness comes first in understanding what it was that you did, so that you don't repeat those same patterns. These are the family patterns, the dysfunctional family patterns that we're trying to bring to awareness. That's the difference here. Yeah.
But I don't have small children anymore to repeat this mistake again.
No, I know you don't have small children, but in order for you to understand why your children, in part, why your children are the way that you are, you have to begin to think back as to what role did you play, so that you won't do it again. But what I mean by that is this: you know by now, because look, you've been around with this for a long time, that their growth stops, or I wouldn't say stops entirely, but it's stunted at the time that they begin to use. Okay, so we may have a 34-year-old man, but emotionally, maybe 15, depending on where they started. Because when you put it in within that context, we see the demands that they make. We see what it is that the manipulation. We see all the things that they're trying to get from the parents, and the parents are like, I don't know what to do anymore. Why are you acting like this? They're acting like this because of something that happened a long time ago, and the types of relationships that you developed with him, in this case, when he was 5, and it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And this is a result of it now. So this is why we have to understand it. And it's always important to understand these relationships, because it's more information for you. Okay, anything helps. Any information is important. Okay, and you can always take that information now and then look at it within the context of what is happening now. And that's an important point. Okay. Now, if you take a look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, it says children, they develop low self-esteem. Their needs are not important or taken seriously by others. We have to think now, we have to think back on, were their needs taken seriously when they asked you for something? Were they dismissed? Did you perhaps say to them, look, not now, later. What there's so these are the questions that we have to take a look at, and this is why we have to go back. We have to try to figure out what happened then, and then we can see the progression and deal with the situation as it is, as it presents now. Okay, now, most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, when children do not form satisfying relationships with the caretaker, in this case, usually, traditionally with the mom, also, of course, with the father, they become more prone to listen to their peers. Their peers have a very strong hold on what they do, especially in junior high school and in high school, okay, and the first, 1 or 2 years of college. And it's usually because it's happening in other families. The kids have something now that keeps, that's their common bond. My mom doesn't understand me. My dad is blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then the other kid says, yeah, well, my mom does it, you know that, and they form together, and then their bond and the way that they understand the situation, the way that they perceive the relationship that they have with the parents, their bond becomes stronger, because all of them, because they're all the same age and they're all going through the same, things, that bond becomes very strong, peer influence, and then they decide how they're going to take care of it. They don't know what they're doing either. But we have to think back, okay? If we're not paying attention to the kids, who's going to pay attention to the kids? If not the parents. Somebody's going to pay attention to them. And those are going to be the people that they're drawn to. So hopefully, if you have a strong high school teacher, junior high school teacher, who takes this kid who is a little bit lost and says, okay, I'm taking you under my wing. This is what I want you to do. You're going to come to class and you're going to sit here and you're going to do this, this, and this. That's great. But most of the kids are not blessed with that. No, not in our school system anyway. Okay. So ultimately, turn to drug use, possibility. Yeah, it's a big possibility. Okay. Now, in here, in this particular case, the types of dysfunctional families, there's many of them. In one of them, the parents themselves have addictions or compulsions. Now, an addiction, an addiction can be anything. An addiction can be an addiction to this, playing games. That's still an addiction. An addiction could be work. Drugs and alcohol, that's okay. We understand that, yes, those are addictions, but overworking, sure. But now we run into a problem because the parents are trying to give the kids what they can in terms of a good lifestyle. The kids don't need anything because the parents work and they're making money and they're trying to provide for the kid. But with everything else, there's that fine line. And even with work, if we cross that fine line, the kids now feel, in a way, abandoned. My mom doesn't pay attention to me because all she does is work. What do we do? How do you feel about that? Because all of you, I would imagine, are you know, you don't stay home. Well, no, I mean, you have, you know, good jobs, what I'm trying to say. You know, what do you think about this? What do you think about that point?
You're right, but also I want to.
Well,
So you probably know that we all immigrants, right? And we came.
yeah,
to this
that I understand, and that's.
country,
But you
and
see,
the-
that's the other point. Because you came to the United States, you tried even harder.
we
and you
didn't have
tried, and
luxury to stay at home and babysit child most of the times.
you didn't have that
Sometimes-
luxury.
Yes, we did not have. Some families, there was only mother who raised the children.
Yeah.
So our kids were kind of abandoned. Not
So
every child had a grandmother who
That's
was
true.
at home.
That's true. That's why I say every relationship is different, you know, and we've got to take it individually. So there, you know, there are things, there are these situations that sometimes the parents can't help, and it's not through any fault of theirs. It's a need. They needed to do this. Unfortunately, because of the psychological, emotional makeup of the child, something didn't go as planned. And now the child finds themselves in a situation where they're trying to maybe, or, you know, when they first started with drugs or alcohol, they're trying to find their way. Unfortunately, they don't realize this is not the way to go. Okay. So all of these different areas, threat or application of physical violence, you know, does it happen? Of course it does. Has it happened in your family? I don't know. I just want you to think about that. So I'm really not gonna spend too much time with this one. The only thing here is this explosive outburst, which means that parents sometimes have a very short fuse, you know, and they're very, they're angry. And we're going to talk about this later, but they're angry and they're short with their child, and then they don't want to be around them because they've got their own things going on. Do I understand it? Yes, I do. But again, we have to look at it to see how it affected the child. Think back, how vulnerable emotionally was your child? How much did they cry? How much did they need you to be around? You know, what was, well, we're not going to go into attachment styles here, but there's different attachment styles. And, you know, I want you to think back on how much did they need you? And if they needed you a lot, were you there? Was your husband there? What was the situation? Okay, the next one, some families will treat a child not as a child, but if it's something that is more like a possession, okay, in terms of the purpose is that the child has to give the parent whatever the parent needs. If that happens in your family, or if it happened, this is a tough one, particularly because the child now becomes a parent, and we run into a lot of issues where the child has to grow up very quickly. They don't have a childhood, and so on. The next one is when a parent threatens a lot. Okay, so the parent is in a very powerful position to begin with. So they don't provide the support, the emotional support that the child needs. And everything is contingent on, if you do this, then I'll give you this. Okay. I'm not going to give you money for this. I'm going to take away the phone. Which is okay. It's okay to do that. But now we have to think back and say, how much did I do it? How did I come across in doing it? What was my emotional state when I did this? How did my child interpret this? Did I sit down and talk to my kid? So there's a lot of aspects here that we need at some point, I would imagine, to go over, that you need to go over after, you know, the whole presentation. And then here, the last one is the authoritarian control. This is a very dangerous one, and I'll go into this later. Here with the authoritarian position, it is complete control. It is only do as I say. You have absolutely no voice. I don't want to hear it. Okay, now, does it work sometimes? Sure. Do you have to be like that as a parent? Yes, you do. However, these are the types of family units where one of these is happening all the time. This is the only thing the child understands and nothing else, which means that if the child has other issues, whether, well, for example, kindergarten, you know, junior high school, and who are they going to talk to? Because if they can't talk to the parent, then we have to wonder, okay, well, now where do they go? All right, because remember, with this authoritarian, it's a one-way relationship. It's all about the parent, not healthy. What do you think? So what do you think about this? Have you experienced any of this at all?
Yes, Dr. Frenk, can I ask you a question? Yeah. What about when you have two kids in a family? You know, one child is fine, and the other child, like my young daughter, she start to use drugs.
Samantha?
By the way, yes, Samantha, she's good. She's good now. She's
good?
perfect. Yeah.
You
So, but you know what she told me a couple of weeks ago, like, really shocked me. She said, you didn't spend time enough with me. You never listen. You constantly was concentrated on the home duties. And no matter what, so from childhood, she said, I even stopped to ask you because I knew it's going to be same question, not now, tomorrow. I don't even remember this, but she did. And it's like you said, she started to ask million questions and her friends, which was probably not good idea. But same time, my old daughter constantly talked to me. Even if I was busy, she said, Mom, stop everything. I want to talk to you. Samantha avoided, even if I saw that something already become wrong, I tried to talk to her. She didn't want to talk. She ran. She didn't want to talk. So personality of two different kids probably is very important also. Believe it or not, I try to treat them same way, old one and young one, but their perception of information and my behavior was accepted differently.
Exactly.
So now I try to repair what I need with her, to be with her all the time and listen and even look. But same time, even so she's recovery, she's very good, come back to college, go dating. I'm scared her. You don't understand how. I'm very, very scared to disappoint her or even be honest with her. You know, what I can say to my old daughter, I would never, ever say to Samantha, because in my mind, probably codependent mother, I think that she's going to be upset and she's going to run and something happened and it could be my fault again. So how to behave in situation when we try to repair our behavior, what we miss when they were young, when situation is that most of the mom I speak with, they're scared to disappoint kids. We're scared to ask questions. We're scared to be involved. So it's so many opinions about this, you know, like put boundaries, don't go this, don't do that.
Yeah.
And honestly, Dr. Frenk, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted every day to behave the way I have to behave. I do. And she feels it. She says, you never speak with me like you speak with Natalie, the older daughter, because you see her healthy child. You can scream, you may say, I don't like how you talk to me, but you never ever talk to me this way. So you still see me like a sick child. So what do you think, what is your opinion about behavioral of parents if child live with parent?
Wow, this is, I mean, the questions that you raise are very valid, but they're very difficult to answer right now. You know, I'll tell you one thing, and I don't know if you remember, but back in Victory, Sam was mine.
Yes.
You know, she was mine. So perhaps at some point you and I can talk. You know, but you mentioned something that's very interesting. You said you're trying to repair the behavior. Okay, I think we have to accept at this point what's done is done. How is anybody going to go back and repair it? In order to repair something, okay, we have to understand how it's broken, and then how are we going to put the pieces back together? Okay.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Now that's a very, very difficult thing to do, because we're talking about fragmented emotions. We're talking about a fragmented psyche. Okay. And it's not just what we see, obviously, and I'm sure you know this, but it's not just what we see on the surface. There is so much disarray underneath everything, that what you see is just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath, there is this chaos that has been brewing for years and years and years and years, until one day it just explodes, because the child can no longer keep all of this inside. Now, you're in a very difficult position. Parents are in a very difficult position, because one, you know, once they begin to understand the disorder, once they begin to understand what substance abuse and alcoholism is about, I truly believe they will do anything to try and help. They really will, but we have to be very careful, because now we find ourselves in a situation like you're finding yourself. You're walking on eggshells. You are afraid to make any move, because you think that she's going to interpret your behavior from some perspective, a negative perspective, and then that's going to give her an excuse to go use. So it's very difficult for you. Okay. You know, I don't want to get into it more, because then I'll be talking about Sammy, and I'm not going to Samantha, and I'm not going to do that because of what I know about her.
Yeah. She loves you so much. Yeah, she said the only therapist who understood me, only one.
Oh my goodness. Well, give her my
yes,
love.
I'm not lying at all, and she highly recommended to even her friends who needed to talk to you.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Frank. So the situation, of course, not all kids live with parents now, but just to come back in college, I have no choice. I have to support her. And what she told me, she didn't want to come back to 12 steps. She said she doesn't want to be in this environment. She's happy be in love and family. And I can tell that she's enjoying. So why I'm explaining this, because I really, truly believe after so many months of problem with all kids, we know like each other moms. So I believe that all kids is different. Samantha didn't want, for example, she didn't want to go groups. She said, Mom, I can't see them. What helped me, she said, it's love of family. She said, you love me and my sister and my father so much that I tried to show you that I worth it. But a lot of kids cannot even stay next to parents after what happened to them. And they gladly will take help from 12 steps, psychologists and stuff like this. So I still believe that all kids is different, and every mom, every mom has to find the way what to do with their own child. We cannot do like everybody has to this way or this way.
Exactly. I agree with that. And it connects to be every family is different, every child is different, every situation is different. There's similarities here and there, you know, but overall, the whole purpose, for example, of therapy is to zero in on the specificities of that particular child's personality, and then understand how that personality developed as a function of the environment, as a function of these patterns, you know, the relationship patterns, as a function of peers. And there's so many things that come into play. Now, we can say, well, actually, you know, I'm going to change that. We cannot say that every addict is the same as every other addict. I really don't believe that. I believe perhaps the experiences are similar. And even that I'm very cautious with, okay? But I think that, you know, that we have to be very careful in taking all of these, all of the I want to say the clients, all the clients, and put them in one box and say, nope, this is what we're going to do. This is the type of therapy. This is what I've been taught. This is how I'm going to approach it. No, I do not agree with that. I think that's very, very dangerous. Okay, because, you know, Sammy is different than the other clients that I've had, and some of the mothers that I have are different from each other. They've got different personalities and different ways of understanding life. Just because you came from Russia, does that make you all the same? No, it doesn't. And then when you were here, the way that you dealt with this culture, the way that you understood what it is that you needed to do to get by and to make a living. And, you know, I remember Maria, was saying in another group that she had a very difficult time when Maria and her husband were watching TV, and they were, you know, there was I think like a comedy show, and they just couldn't get it. They didn't understand, you know, the humor, the American humor. That's difficult. Everything is difficult that you had to do once you landed here in the United States, you know. So do I understand that particular perspective? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And this is rough, you know, this is challenging, and it's heartbreaking at the same time. You want the kids to be okay. Some of them are okay, and some of them are not going to be okay. And that's another thing that we have to accept as well. And that's a whole nother story. What do we do at that point? You know, so it's it's a horrible disease. So is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, thank you, Dr. Fr. I can talk with you hours, but it's not fair. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. So what I would like for you to do is take a look at this particular PowerPoint. This, I think, happens in every single family, regardless of the type of relationship patterns that have been developed over time. Sometimes the kids are forced to take sides when the parents are fighting. Okay. Sometimes what the kids are experiencing is what we call this, you know, reality shift. When the kids see what's happening, the parents are denying it, and the kid at that point doesn't know what to do. So now the kid will pull away, but yet they know what they've observed. So it's very conflicting for the child. A lot of times the kids are ignored, which we already kind of went over. They're ignored, they're criticized. You know, the parents don't really put much value into what the kid is trying to say to them. And remember, not every kid is highly intelligent. You know, kids, they at a certain age, sometimes, you know, we don't understand them because of their lingo and how they try to get their thoughts across, but they try. And, you know, as soon as a kid says, Mom, indication that something is happening, they're already kind of getting upset. And we have to find out right at that point, What is it that's bothering them? What is it that they just saw? What is it that they're thinking about? See, it's these subtle clues that the kids are giving you. They're giving you the frustration. They're telling you, Mom, stop, okay? But and yet we don't listen. You know, so it's all of these little minor things that parents kind of blow over, and the kid then goes in there, they have to shut the door, they go in their room, you know, on the headphones go on, and they don't want to deal with reality anymore. Why? Because nobody's listening to them. They're angry for a reason, and they're getting kind of, no, go. I don't have time for you right now. Okay. So then we look at kids who feel that their parents are too intrusive, overly involved, and protective. Oh boy, what do we do with this one? How could parents not be intrusive? See, I don't always agree with the research. That's just me. You know, we have to be intrusive. We have to know what they're doing. We can't ignore what they're doing. And what I mean by that is we want to know who they're hanging out with. We want to know what's on their computer. We want to know what they're reading. We want to know, again, who their friends are. We want to know, are they really going to the movies? Okay, if that's being intrusive, too bad. Too bad, you know? So being strict in that sense where, you know, we're not being intrusive, you know, in the privacy of the bathroom when they're in there, we're being intrusive to find out, hey, this is my child, what's going on, okay? But the next thing is overly involved. That we have to be careful with, because if we step over that line, then the intrusiveness becomes extreme, and that's where we begin to have these issues of where the child says, get out of my face, I don't want you in my life, all you do is nag, nag, nag. You know, you've heard that before. Okay, now, the last one is protective. You tell me how you're not going to protect your kids. Of course, you're going to protect your kids. So I don't know if I agree with this protective one. Okay, you need to be protective. Let me ask you this. Do you think that you could be overly protective?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah? Okay. Tell me how.
Yes.
But tell me how you can be overly protective. What are the signs of being overly protective in a relationship with your kids? What is it that you do when you're overly protective, and why is that bad?
One of the example, hiding the difficulties that family is coming through. Not giving the child the chance to know that, just hiding.
Okay, is that being protective though?
In a kind, yeah. For me, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. How about, I'm sorry.
No, just, it's okay.
Okay, I'm still trying to think about what you said, and what came to mind was, in terms of protection, is there protection that you're trying to be, for example, you don't want to let them in on too much information in order to protect them from listening to bad things about other family members, about maybe a brother or a sister, about perhaps your husband. Is that a good protection or a bad protection?
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it is bad, because it should be filtered very carefully. And
it should be filtered very carefully.
Maybe they're not ready to understand. Maybe they're too small to understand this, to talk about this adult subject.
Okay, that's another point. That's a good point.
I can give you one example. when my son at the age of 25 committed to suicide, we never told it to our daughter, who was already using. Or maybe she started using after his death. And when my husband was absolutely desperate, he told my daughter about the real reason why our son passed away. She could never forget him for that. That was a huge trauma. And she was telling, why couldn't you tell me right away 15 years ago what happened?
Yeah.
And we didn't want her to know the truth.
Right.
We wanted to, from one point of view, we wanted to protect it. From another point of view, we wanted to keep it in a family, because we know if she will know, everyone will know. And we didn't want to talk about it. We didn't want a whole world, all the friends and family know the real reason. So we just and everyone believed. Isn't it protection? Yes, it is protection. But this is, and my husband passed away, unfortunately, but I never agree with him. I would hide it even now, because it was a huge, huge trauma for her. And it didn't help. It didn't help. It made things worse. But again, that's my example of protection. And I can give many other examples.
The example that you gave is excellent in when to help us put things in context, as when parents are trying to protect their kids from something that was such a horrendous situation, but yet did it work out? That's the question, right? Did it work out the way that you thought it was going to work out? So perhaps what needs to be done, and it needs to be done very quickly, is to think of how we're going to protect the kids, and then very quickly assess if it's going to be detrimental for them or not. But that has to be done very, very quickly, because if you have a situation and you need to tell them, but yet you're not sure if you should tell them because of how they may take it, the decision has to happen very quickly, because if you let a lot of time pass, it gets worse. The situation gets worse. This is extremely complicated. And that in itself, we could spend hours talking about. So thank you for
example, and probably everyone can, probably everyone face it in this group, is financial protection. If they need money, they need something, we will buy it. That's again, that's Russian parents. You want new clothes, you get new clothes. You're grown up, you want to live separately, we will buy you the apartment, we will buy you the furniture, we'll help you with the food. You want, that's very common pattern. It's not a protection in like 100%, it's not 100% definition of protection, but it is. We don't want our kids to experience financial difficulties, right?
Nina, but this is how we grew up, right? We were raised
Absolutely.
this way by our parents. We got this model from the family.
That's how
the child comes first.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of our parents, like if you go to the history, our parents didn't grow up like this, because that was they grew up during the war, many of them, and parents had to work, etc., etc. They just couldn't afford that, and that's why we are kind of paying for something that we didn't get earlier in our childhood. So we are trying to give
compensate.
Compensate them. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it a protection? Yes, in a way.
Wow.
I cannot think right now about physical protection, let's say.
Yeah. Well, but it's different.
And we always have this guilt that our children did not have when they grew up here in US, in foreign countries. They did not have as much as other American friends had. like we feel like kind of guilt that we did not give them when they needed, when they were little.
Okay. So let me just ask a very general question. Okay. How helpful do you think it was to give them everything
Not
instead
at
of
all.
having them work
Not
for
at
it?
all.
Not at all.
Okay. Is that the general consensus now?
Well, now we understand, but the damage
Right.
is done. Yeah.
Sure. Now you understand. Okay. But now that's what they expect.
Excuse me, I think it's my opinion. I think it's depend on a person which we want to give all or maybe more. Some children give it with respect. Some children give it with, okay, it's okay. It's depend on personality. It's depend on situation, I think. What do you think, Dr. Frank? Is it good or is it bad to solve all of problem or big problem?
Oh, well, there's a lot of ways to understand this. I mean, I truly believe that everybody here really wants to solve their children's problems completely, because it's not a bad thing, because you really want to give them a life free from stuff, free from everything that perhaps you experienced, or things that you've seen you don't want them to go through. So I get that, I do. But it always comes back to, you're not teaching your child anything. What are you teaching the kid? If I say to you, okay, you're in my class and at the college, and I'm lecturing, and I say to you, this is how you do it. Okay, this is the guideline. You are to follow this. Okay, so I gave you kind of like a map, right, where you can follow it. And now one or two things are going to happen. You're either going to do it correctly or you're going to falter. If I leave it at that, you haven't learned anything. But if I show you, and after you've made your mistakes, and I say, okay, show me what you have done. Well, I did this, this, and this, but I didn't get the result that I was supposed to. Well, then let's take a look at where you kind of messed up. Okay. So to answer your question, if you do everything for them because of the goodness of your heart, from my perspective, it's more detrimental, because you're not teaching them anything. You're giving them, everything is so detailed and laid out that they don't know, they don't have any tools. What tools do they have in life then? What skills do they develop? How do they understand to get out of a situation? How do they understand how to deal with a lot of different situations? And yet,
I want to ask you, what about controlling? You think, because control kids, like not only spoil them, but make all decisions for them. Like what I realize now, that even so I was soft mom, but still it was my way or no way. And even now, like my old one, 33, Samantha is almost 30. They both said, you didn't teach us to fly at all. We don't know how to fly. I pick schools, I call schools, I decide what they have to do, how they have to dress, what boys to pick. So I thought I never pushed, but apparently it's what happens. So it's a lot of moms, maybe especially Russian moms, who make our kids to do what we think it's right for them. It's
This is
not
what I'm beginning to see. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not necessarily bad, but I did this mistake twice with colleges, for both of them. And now I decide no more. I'm not going to be involved, but it's somehow too late because they don't know how to save, what to do with money, what to do with jobs. They asked me both questions. I was shocked. I said, oh my God, I made them like this.
Yeah. There it is. There, you just said it.
Yeah.
You just said it. I made them like this.
Yes, yes.
That is hard to swallow.
Yeah. They don't know how to fly at all because I made all decisions and I thought it's for good, but it came out for worse.
I did the same.
You did what you did, and now you have to pick up the pieces because now it's a mess.
Mess, yeah.
So now what we have to understand is that a lot of substance abuse, comes from situations like this. Let's be realistic, okay? The kids don't know what to do. You gave, not you, in general, you gave them everything. They don't understand life. They've never experienced life. Why? Because you took it away from them. You took their life away. By trying to be so good, you took their life away. Kids, this is why basically we send them away to elementary school, unless you're home teaching them, but they're in elementary school because they've got to get away from their parents so they can begin to learn to play with other kids and learn to do this and learn to do that. But if they're the mother, if they're at home and the mom teaches them everything and does everything for them, they're zombies. They don't do anything. All they know how to do is sleep late. They sleep late, they get up, and they know that dinner's going to be ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really like the fact that, at least we recognize this, and it's not that we're blaming. I don't want that. I don't want us to blame anybody. I just want us to understand, and talk about it so that we have a foundation from which to work from. This is extremely important, okay? But what you said was so right on the money. I made them the way that they are. Yeah. And I think it's great that you're able to say that, because there's a lot of parents who won't say that. They won't take that responsibility. They won't put it on themselves. And no, I don't know. I don't know. I gave my children everything. So I don't know what went wrong. The fact that you gave them everything, that's what went wrong.
Dr. Frenk, before coming to program and going to the groups and having conversation with psychologists and narcologists and the other specialists in the rehabs, let's say I was thinking, why is she doing what she's doing? I gave her everything. I gave up on a lot of things. Why? Yeah, I was asking this question, what else did she need? Why she was doing what she's doing,
Yes, that's exactly it. She didn't want that.
Everyone in a way was thinking like this.
Yeah. Well,
we did everything we can.
Yeah. And it's interesting though, isn't it? And it's very ironic that the very thing that you think you're giving your children to help them is the thing that's detrimental.
Absolutely.
That's the irony of substance abuse, and the irony of the mothers that I'm learning about, that I'm getting to meet, and especially like you're sharing, within the Russian community, the Russian moms, give and give and give, not because they want to take away from their child, because they want to help their child and they want to give everything they possibly can. And that's exactly what they shouldn't be doing. That's crazy. It's crazy.
How to,
absolutely crazy.
Dr. Frenk, now we all in situation when we try to change something. We cannot just give up, not like put kids on the street and not give it and help at all. So where is this middle age when we have to watch them to grow, even in 30s, because like you said, mentally they may be 20s. So how to watch them to make mistakes and not to jump right away, where to see this point when we have to let them try to make mistakes because we know what we did already, and not the kids fail again or do something really what may destroy them. So it's why, like most of the mom in our group, our kids already adults, and unfortunately, they all use different substances, but they use. So what we discussed every time we see each other, how to fix it. And we very confused in opinions how to fix it now, because this age has to be we have to measure very carefully, not to damage anymore, let them fly a little bit, and same time just watch how they grow.
Okay, right there. Okay, very good. You have to, I just want to add something to that. You made me think about something. The role that communication now plays. Okay, we have to accept that they're no longer kids. Okay, they've been through a lot. You've been through a lot. Now that they are adults, it's time to treat them like adults. However, what I mean by that is to sit down and talk to them. That is communication, I think right now for us is probably the most important gift that you can bring to your child right now. Talking. It's not going to be, what can I do for you? It's going to be, how can I understand you better? Tell me, talk to me. I want to know you on a different level now. I want to know how you are, what you're thinking. Let me guide you, but I will not tell you what to do. Okay? And we have to start so that they begin to gain trust in you, because they don't trust you, because they think it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. So we really have to take a different approach. This is just one aspect, I could be totally wrong, but I used the same approach when at the facilities that I worked in. All these kids, these kids came in so broken, and all they really wanted was somebody to listen to them. How many times in my office, my mom never listens. My mom never listens. I mean, I can't breathe because she always does everything. I don't know what to do. And I hear this and I hear this and I hear this. I've heard it from every single client that I've ever had. It's got to be valid. There's got to be some validity to what they're saying.
Communication is most important.
Communication is the most important. Think about it. If you don't communicate, you can't even say to them, I love you. You have to communicate that too, which I'm sure you do. But the way that, at least I think, the way that you've been communicating, I love you, is by, buying them things. Well, they don't need things. They need love. They need affection. They need you. They need to hear, I love you. 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 For me, that's the most important thing. Okay? You can feed me all you want. Once the food goes down and I don't have the taste in my food anymore, that's it. I'm done. But I love you reaches the heart. It stays there. the emotions, communicating how you really feel, saying to them, listen, I really want to get to understand you from a place that I never knew you before. Tell me what you're thinking. It's not, tell me what you're thinking. All right, go ahead. You know, time's up. Tell me what you're thinking. No, 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 no. And that leads me also into telling you how important the way that you speak to your kids. That's another thing. Okay. The mannerisms. It's complicated, but we have to begin to break it down, and we have to begin to be able to say to the kids, you're an adult now, and now I can speak to you as an adult, and I'm going to try to understand what I never could understand about you before.
And he will get scared if I will come to him all of a sudden.
Okay.
Let's talk now, son.
Okay.
I'm different now, and I want to be
Yeah.
close to you.
Yeah,
He will tell me,
well,
Mama,
that could happen.
Are you okay, Mama?
Mm. But you know what? If you make them feel like an adult, then you have a place to start to make the connection. If you look at them as if they're still a child, okay, that's the way they've been feeling all along. What are you gaining from doing that? Nothing really, you know? Okay, so you have any more questions? I've got more stuff. We don't have to go, do we?
No.
Do we have to go? No, good, good, okay, good. All right, so let's see. Well, you could take a look at this. I think we kind of went over this. Let's move on to this one. Okay. Now, some of the resulting issues kind of touched on it, but abuse and neglect, as I have here, really, really impinge on their ability to not only trust the parents, but to trust others. And of course, this kind of trickles down into the types of relationships that they develop. When you listen to addicts speak, you always hear them say, well, I don't trust her. I don't trust him. Why not? Well, I just don't, because they're always, they're always going to do something to me. They're always going to do something. Where do you get this from? I don't know. And then they don't want to talk about it. Why? Because of the way that they've been neglected somewhere along in the family. Now, you may be thinking and saying, well, we never neglected them. Okay, and that's fine, but that's your perspective. It's not theirs. And this is the kind of thing that you have to find out. This is why I'm saying communication is so important, because you need to find these specific things out about the way that they felt, bottom line. What is it that they were feeling? And if one of the things is that they didn't trust, we need to correct, that we need to repair. You'll need to repair the trust. And you're the one that's going to have to work at it, okay? Because, and I'm going to say it, you should know by now that I don't hold back, but you're the one that created it. That's the way that it is, okay? So later on as adults, they find it difficult to trust the behaviors and the words of others. Yes, that's very true. Now, when you can't trust and you're always on edge, there's a little sense of paranoia there that can develop. A lot of things can develop just by not feeling that the parents have trusted the kid. And all of the things that we've been talking about so far, we'll see later tiny little bit, but does it affect the developing brain? Yes, it does. The environment, the way that parents speak to children affect a lot of things. The prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, it affects a tremendous amount. And so what we see is really the result in behaviors of what part of the brain hasn't really developed that well. It's interesting. But this is something that parents, many parents don't truly understand, that when the child is very little and the brain is developing, it's picking up all sorts of cues from the environment, and it's affecting growth, and then it's stunting further development. And so what we see is an immature person living in a mature world. There's a disconnect right there. And so then, and also, the kids experience, of course, problems in school, problems with who they are, and they don't really know what is normal anymore. If they talk to other kids, they begin to realize and understand that, their family is different than perhaps their friends' families. Are trying to figure out what is normal. So yeah, it's a big problem, and it's something that we have to really address and get to the root of the situation. Okay, so now there are 5 different types of dysfunctional families. Perhaps you have one of these types of families, or maybe not, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. There's one that's called a conflict-driven family. Families are always fighting. It's a stressful environment. The kids are always on edge. There's, again, no communication. And you'll notice that no communication repeats itself. It's a theme, okay, that is basically in this presentation. So inability of the parents to communicate with the kids, and the kids with the parents, okay? And then eventually we have certain types of stressful disorders that arise because of this. But imagine being a very small child and living in an environment, a very closed environment, where you're tiny, you have a tiny brain, and you don't understand why there's so much yelling. You don't understand why, there's this anger. You don't understand anything. Okay, you run into your room, you hide under the bed, you go into the bathroom, you shut the door. Everything is, I've got to escape, I've got to escape. Well, when you take that same situation and you look at it through the years, the kid is doing what? By using drugs. They're escaping. They don't like a lot of fighting. They can't handle, even in their own personal relationships, they can't handle arguments. They're not good with that. Okay, why? Because it brings them back to the trauma that they experienced. Is this true trauma? Yeah, it is. It is. So if this is a situation that perhaps you experience, think about it. Okay. The next one is the violent family. This is the one that's absolutely more detrimental than anything else. Okay, and this is where the child witnesses all sorts of stuff. And again, God willing, this did not happen in your family, but verbal, sexual abuse, changing causes changes in the developing brain, and there is a huge risk here for psychiatric disorders and substance abuse. Now, usually it's not just substance abuse that the child has. They come in with a comorbidity, right? They come in with something else. It could be anything from anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, that whatever it is, it's usually, there's always something else. It's not just drugs or alcohol, okay? And a lot of times when we begin to do therapy, we find out that it's trauma related. So nine times out of 10, the child will say to me, this happened and I saw this and I witnessed my parents do this and this and this and this. The parents think that that's normal, but the child is telling me this isn't normal. Okay, so something happened, and we have to try to pinpoint and isolate it in your own family. Think back, eventually, what happened? What happened that my child interpreted it as traumatic And I didn't think it was traumatic, but it was. Okay. So in these types of environments, this is where we really have changes in the brain. And this is where the prefrontal cortex, judgment and impulse control is in the prefrontal cortex. And as you know, drug addicts, they have a very poor ability to judge situations. Look at the situations that they get into. Just judgment in general, it's overridden by something else. Okay, impulse control. Addicts are very impulsive. They don't think about the repercussions. They don't play the tape out. They don't think about what could happen. No, I need to do this now. And so we see the behavior at the facility. A lot of them, they leave. They don't think about, when you ask them the question, well, where are you going to go? I don't know. Well, where are you going to sleep? I don't care. I'll find a bridge. I'll find behind a trash can. I'll find, you know. Why? Because it's impaired. And why is it impaired? We have to go back and try to figure that out. Okay. Learning and memory, you know, and for me, a lot of clients that I came across are super, super smart. So I didn't really see that learning and memory was impaired, although it does happen. And then in the cerebellum, you know, physical movement, but we don't have to get into that. The one that I think is really important is number one, is the judgment and impulse control. Their impulsivity is through the roof. Okay. I mentioned in the beginning the authoritarian family. Okay. This is where the demands are met. The children have to meet the demands of the parents. There's little or no feedback. There's feedback that's given, but it's in a negative way. Okay. There's a lot of yelling. It's the parents' way. And again, this is what we already talked about. The children, they don't get any experience when the parents are that authoritative. Okay. So again, if this was your family, it's not something that I want you to think that I'm, you know, throwing it in your face. No, I just want you to be aware that in this type of family, these are the things, the results that could happen. Okay, substance abuse is a big one of them, and the inability to control their own behavior because they were never allowed to make decisions. The decisions were always made for them. Now you can be very authoritarian in a nice way, but you're still making decisions for them. Okay, authoritarian, it's not a nice word, but it really does reflect the way that one parent, two parents think, and the resulting behavior that they exert on their kids. Okay. Do you have any questions so far? No? Okay. The emotionally detached family. Some families are void of affection and warmth, which I was talking about before in terms of love. Being emotionally unavailable is very detrimental. Now, is the mother, let's say traditionally, is a mother emotionally unavailable intentionally? Maybe in some cases, yes, but overall, no, I don't think so. I think this is, you know, generational. I think that perhaps this is something that her mom maybe didn't show to her. I don't know, could be. Or perhaps they're just uncomfortable with showing affection. But whatever the case, it's still lack of affection, you know, and lack of affection is detrimental. Which would you rather be? Would you, for example, would you rather have somebody talk to you sternly and in an authoritative way and with no emotions, or would you rather have somebody have a nice conversation with you in a general everyday sense of the word? I prefer somebody who's not rigid, who is flexible, who I can have a conversation with. But if somebody if I'm talking to somebody who is emotionally detached, I can't read them. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Now imagine being in a family where the parents are like that. It's very difficult. And then this is what they learn. So now they become emotionally stagnant. They become emotionally detached in their relationships. Their relationships fail because the other person can't get to know them. There's no love. There's nothing. They don't know how to show it. And underneath all of that is this. It creates problems with their sense of self, how they feel about themselves. They think they're unworthy of just about everything, because the way they interpret it is my parents didn't give me love because I'm not worthy of receiving love. Wow. Well, if they're not worthy of receiving love from their parents, how are they going to show it to anybody else? They can't. It's very difficult for them. Okay. So fear of abandonment. That's a big one. Why? What's the connection to fear of abandonment? The distance in relationships, the distance in another person being cold to them. And they interpret that as an abandonment. Well, it is, it's an emotional abandonment. So then they have problems, school problems, psychological issues, personality disorders. It's a mess. It's a mess. And of course, substances. Wow. And then we have this one. This is the last one, I think, in terms of the types of, families. If within the family, we have people who drink, people who are alcoholics, maybe the parents are alcoholics, maybe the parents use, okay. Again, they're not going to have basic needs met. And basic needs is very important to understand. I didn't put it in this particular slide, but there's a theory that we work from. The psychologist was Abraham Maslow. It's a hierarchy of needs. You can look that up if you want to. In the bottom of this triangle, the basic needs that are met are being fed, having a place to sleep, that kind of thing. Sometimes when you have these types of parents, those basic needs are not met. The kids have to fend for themselves. They don't know where they're going to get their food. They don't know, how they're going to survive the night because of the parents having these particular issues. And it's interesting because drug addicts, when you think about the connection there, is that they kind of mimic what they see the parents doing. Okay. So drug addicts, they don't eat well. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. Okay. You can see them sleeping in the day room because they don't care. Okay. They try to find a place to be wherever they're at the moment. Okay. So although this, hopefully, you're not part of a substance abuse family. However, I don't know. So I just wanted to put this here so that we could kind of just touch on it for a little bit. But one of the major things here, again, is not only are they at a heightened risk for developing substance abuse disorders, but again, the brain kind of damaged, affected in a very severe way. Okay. And this is why a lot of them have PTSD. They've got depression, anxiety disorders, and so on. This is just one type of family. But, imagine if you have an authoritarian family combined with parents who have withheld their love, and they're always working too much, so they're never home. And when they come home from work, they're drunk because they stopped off at the bar with colleagues. You see, you can have so many of these different things in one family. That's overwhelming. How is a child supposed to deal with that? But I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Okay. Now, there's something called triangulation. And this is where you have the mother, the father, and the child. Either the mother and the father get together and the child is here, or the child and the mother or the child and the father get together and then you have the other remaining parent. That's not good either. Where is the communication there? There isn't. There's no communication. There's a teaming up of either two parents against the child or a parent and a child against the other parent. Again, no communication. Something is being broken down. Somebody is taking sides with somebody else. Shouldn't be like that. Does it have, is this common? Yeah, it's common in family, sure. You know, I like when a child asks a parent, oh, you know, can I do this? I don't know, go ask your mom. And then the mom says, I don't know, go ask your dad. That's better than this. Okay, I'd rather have a parent not say anything and then wait and see what the other parent says. And then, you know, at least there's some kind of connection there, some kind. All right, but it's not this. Triangulation is pretty bad. Okay, because now we're taking sides. All right. Gaslighting. This is something that I teach in group all the time. This is manipulation and making the other person believe through manipulation that their reality is not real, that what they're seeing is incorrect, that they're misinterpreting all the time. Okay, so eventually, if the person continues this type of behavior, okay, this gaslighting on someone else, that other person begins to question whether that what they're really seeing is true. Okay, this happens with narcissistic people. Okay, but we're not going to get into personality disorders here, but if you know somebody who's narcissistic, the narcissist will always try to make you feel that what you're listening to or what you're understanding is really not real. You didn't understand what I said. Okay, you're getting it wrong. You always get it wrong. When are you going to get it right? Yeah, and on and on and on. Okay. All right. We have something called stonewalling. Okay, when a family member is offended and refuses to engage the other person. There's no no communication. It's like turning your back on someone. You don't want to hear it anymore. Okay, case closed. Done. We're not talking about this. Is this a form of emotional attachment? Yes. Detachment? Yes, it is. Okay. And this is where the child feels that they're abandoned because the parent is always saying to them, no, I'm not going to listen to you. Nope, I don't want to hear it. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. So that's called stonewalling. All right. Let's take a look at some of the consequences of growing up in a dysfunctional family. Attachment issues, some of the gravest problems that we could possibly have from some of the types of dysfunctions dysfunctional families that we came across. And again, the theme, communication and emotional unavailability. So let me stop here and let me ask you this. How emotionally available were you when your child was growing up? You were emotionally available? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so you told your children how much you love them. You told them, you showed them, you hugged them until you wanted to break their bones, right? Okay, wonderful. Okay, good. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay, but do you notice that from the people that you know, from the people that you speak to, that a lot of mothers are emotionally cold? Have you come across that? Yes. You have come across it, so you're able to pick it up too in other moms. Absolutely. Oh yeah, okay. Children with this type of emotionally unavailable mom, later on, there's a chance to develop a dependent personality disorder. Okay, because now they go seek someone else. They need that. Children need to feel loved, and if they don't, they're going to try to get it from someone else. And when they don't, they become overly dependent on someone else for what they're lacking. Okay, because they're afraid that if they don't become dependent on that person's going to leave. Okay, so they have to then overdo it.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, of course.
So can it also be that somebody becomes on reverse, like because of being afraid of being dependent, becomes extremely independent?
Can adults do that? Like, can the parents do that?
Yeah, like as a reaction to an emotionally unavailable parent, there is a feel for like lack of like there is a dependency that's internal, but realizing that you have this dependency, that an adult will actually act in the opposite way, like become kind of extremely independent.
Can that happen? Yes, but the question is, why would that happen? I'm sorry.
I find those patterns in myself.
Okay. Well, that it's a good question, and that takes time. It takes time to answer. Now, yeah, you know. But the thing is that just to focus a little bit on what you were saying, for me, I think at that point, when you realize how dependent you are, and I'm using you in general, but when a person becomes so dependent and they realize that, they try to regulate it. And by trying to regulate it, this is where they go the opposite way now, because they can't find that middle ground because they don't know what it is. Nobody's taught them how to be just in the middle. So maybe that's something to think about, you know. Okay, so number 3, helping to regulate the child's emotions and making sense of their feelings. A lot of kids, when they're growing up, they don't know what they're feeling. They don't know, you know, how to make it. They know what they're feeling, but they don't know what it is. They don't know how to make sense of it. You know, the first time a kid falls in love, they're like, what is this feeling? And there would be nothing more wonderful than to be able to sit down with a parent and say, I don't understand. I feel this for this person, but what is this? What's going on? What's going on in my heart? But that doesn't happen, because a lot of times they're embarrassed. You know, they'll never sit down with the parents. God forbid, talk about sex. Oh my God, no, that just doesn't happen. Okay. However, I bet you that if you tried to have an adult conversation at this point, because your children are now adults, they probably would sit down and discuss with you their own views. And again, it's the way that you approach it, and it's your presentation. Remember, now they are adults. So the tactic is different. What you did back then no longer works for adults. You can't. Nobody talks to you as if you were a child. You know, what if somebody spoke to you if you were a child? That tactic doesn't work anymore. Why would you do that to them? We have to understand where they are. Okay, we have to understand they are now adults. So we have to approach it differently. Okay. And then, of course, mood disorders, you know, psychiatric disorders always follow. One of the last slides that I think I have two more, is emotionally immature parents. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I want to go down the list and just look at it and see if you relate to any one of these. Now, honestly, I don't know how many of these you have to be labeled as an emotionally immature parent. I don't know. All right. These are just some of the characteristics of what an emotionally immature parent is. Is it one or two? I highly doubt it. But if you have 7, how many of these? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. If you have 7 of these, that's a red flag. Okay. Self-preoccupation and being egocentric. Everything is me, me, me. That's not a good place to be. Okay. Low empathy and emotionally insensitive. Fear, the parent fears feelings and might have taught their children that certain feelings are shameful or bad. That's something that we could probably talk about some other time, but think about what you've taught your kids in terms of emotions. How did you teach your kids to feel? This goes back to what we said in the beginning, expressed emotion. How do your kids express their emotions? How do you express your emotions? Did you say to your kids, don't say that. Don't talk like that in front of people. Okay, you were trying to teach them something. I completely understand that. But in doing that, did you make them feel bad about themselves, shameful? Something to think about, okay? Did you focus on their physical needs instead of the emotional needs? I think personally that a lot of parents make this common mistake. They want to make sure that their children, the child never goes hungry, okay, that they've got everything they need. They take them to get their shot. This is wonderful. This really is the physical needs. But then they forget all about the emotional needs. And that's when we run into problems. Okay, respond child's ideas or enthusiasm in a dismissive way. Again, I mentioned that before. Have you in the past told your child, oh, what you're saying is not important? No, I don't want to hear this. Okay, that's being dismissive. The child is trying to interact, and in their own tiny way, as a little kid, they're trying to tell you what they're thinking, and they're proud of it because they're able now to put thoughts together and look at me, I can think, and now I can talk to you and I can communicate. And yet at that point, some parents, no, what you have to say is not important. Okay. And then what follows is responding to the child's ideas or enthusiasm in a skeptical way. Always questioning the child, always. Not questioning from a good place where the child is learning, but questioning, where did you get that idea from? How did you get that idea? Where did you see that? Who told you that? Did your father say that? Oh, so you're putting doubt into the child, okay? And we've gone through this already, shallow emotions, quick to react, rigid and single-minded, and then the child can become very defensive when people have other ideas. Why? Well, because they were never able to verbalize their own. Okay, so by being dismissive, you're saying your ideas don't count. In a tiny little brain, what do they interpret it as? I'm stupid. And it's not worth anybody listening to me. Okay. Low stress tolerance. The kids grow up with having low stress tolerance. If the parents have low stress tolerance, okay, and the parents have trouble admitting the mistakes that they've made to the kid. Have you ever said when the child was a little 3, 4 years old, or at least when they can begin to understand, maybe 5, 6, 7, have you ever said to them, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Mommy didn't mean to do that at all. Okay. Stuff, things of that nature. Okay. And then little respect. Emotionally mature parents show little respect for other people's thoughts and opinions if they're different than their own. And again, maybe 1 or 2 of these, it doesn't mean at all that you're emotionally mature. But if you have a significant amount of that, then it's something to probably talk about at some point with someone. Okay. And there's more. Wait. Did I just, oh yeah, okay, this next one. Okay, so now in this, in these last two, we kind of sum it up here in terms of the emotional parent. Let's see what it says. Instills feelings of instability and anxiety in the child. Imagine. Imagine being the kind of parent that gets so upset at little tiny things that it spills over and causes instability and anxiety in the child. Why? Because the child now is walking on eggshells. The child doesn't know if any little thing that they do is going to cause the parents to blow up and react. Okay, so that's what they call the emotional parent. The driven parent is what kind of we said before. Okay, busy all the time, unavailable, not invested in their kids, controlling, interfering. Now, what I've heard tonight is that Russian parents are controlling. Oh, all the heads just raised up. Russian parents are controlling. So my question, and you know, I know you know the answer to this, but how did it work out? So controlling up to a point is okay. I'm not saying it's not. You go past that point, you step over that line. Now it becomes detrimental. Okay. Now, if you look at the last one, everyone expects everyone to want and value the same things they do. That doesn't work either. Just because you think something is important doesn't mean that it is. Just because you want something a certain way doesn't mean that it should be. Now, a 4-year-old is not going to tell you that, but you're training the 4-year-old to believe that that's the way that it should be. And then one day they grow up and they go out of the house and they realize this is not life. And they are angry. And a lot of addicts and alcoholics are pissed off big time. They really are. That's another thing that I keep hearing in therapy. I'm so angry. What are you angry about? And then eventually it comes out. And the last one, the passive parent. Passive parents don't want to deal with anything. Anything that could possibly be upsetting, they're out of there. They do not want to deal with it. Okay. And these are the kids where they have free reign to do whatever they want, whenever they want. It's the opposite of being so protective. Okay. Because the parents don't deal with any of the kids' problems, nothing. They're passive. Whatever the kid wants, that's okay. So we have another problem now. The kids think that they could get anything they want. There's no structure, nothing. They don't know what structure is. Kids need structure, a lot of it. And the last thing is the rejecting parent. We already spoke about this basically, where the parent is dismissive. Okay, the bad part, the derogatory comments, again, communication, and the control issues that the parents have. And this is a reflection of their own personality. They want to be alone. Why would you want to be alone when you have kids? Don't you want to be with the kids? Don't you want the kids to be in the house? Dinner time, watch TV, let's go shopping, let's do that. No. Okay. So there it is. I hope I wasn't too overboard with anything, but I needed to bring, or not needed, but I wanted to bring some things to your attention. But in the future, you know, you and I will decide what topics you want me to talk about, what's important to you. And we will definitely work all together. But do you have any questions about what I said? Is there anything that you wanted to review or discuss? Anything?
Can I ask a question that wasn't covered, but it's kind of an addition to this? If my son, for example, has a big issue with talking to any psychologist, there is a big refusal, and kind of a position that it's never helpful. So I think there is a general, he's expressive, he can be honest, but he chooses most of the time to be withdrawn into himself and not talk to anybody. And suggestion on sort of psychologists, and we've had trauma in my family, are complete refusal. So apparently psychologists also did not find a good way, and in not that there weren't good psychologists.
Yeah.
So I find it very difficult if like no one has found a way to get through. So of course we had issues in my family, but it also seems like, it's kind of an issue all around. So I don't know, if you have any suggestions from that position where nobody can kind of find a path, where the mistrust is so big to everyone.
Well, in your particular situation, the biggest problem that you face is that if your son doesn't want to talk to anybody, it's just not going to happen. He's not going to do something he doesn't want to do. For some reason, the first feeling that I got was trust issues.
Yeah.
Okay. The second one is perhaps is his position. He doesn't like authority for some reason. If you have a title, I don't think he's the type of person that is going to be very open to any type of conversation. Okay. So just with that alone, that's an indication that something happened where perhaps some authoritative figure at some point in his life, he had a bad experience with that particular person. I don't know what happened in school. I don't know anything, I don't know what happened in school. It could have been a teacher too. Some of the teachers, you want to kill them because of the way that they treat the kids, but so the first thing that would have to happen is somehow, and this is not through a psychologist, this would be through perhaps you or other family members trying to reinforce or make him see that the psychologist is not there to tell him what to do. That's what I think, maybe that's what he's afraid of. Somebody's going to tell him what to do. Maybe he doesn't want that, but he just won't take the chance. He's just afraid. So there's something there that I'm picking up that, so I wouldn't push it with psychologists, but what perhaps you could do, maybe not, I'm going to say it anyway, but maybe not, is get someone who he trusts, who has a lot of insight into the substance abuse field, but not with a title. As soon as you put a title in there, that's it, you lost him. That's what it feels like. How you can do that, I'm not sure. You don't want to lie to him either, so it's kind of tricky. Have him talk to.
I think for him it's title or no title. He's just not interested
At all. Not so something. I don't know. I can't at this moment. It's like I can't figure it out. I don't know. But the trust issues, I think there's something there with.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely trust issue, but I don't even know how to approach it.
But why a psychologist? Why doesn't he like somebody who is going to help him? Maybe he doesn't like somebody thinking that they know him. I don't know. There's a lot of stigma with being a psychologist, I don't know what he knows or what he's heard or something. So I'm not sure at this point.
He's seen a number of psychologists and he's been in 2 programs, kind of longer term programs. And I think kind of that's his take away from all that, I guess.
Well, you know what? Just because they have a reputation of being good, some of them may not be. So maybe the types of conversations that he's had in therapy just turned him off. He doesn't like them. So now it's more of a generalization than specific. I don't know.
I mean, I've talked to the psychologist, and I've seen some very good ones and some maybe not great. So I mean, he's definitely met with some very good psychologists, but he didn't.
Yeah, but still, it doesn't seem to have, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. So yeah, that's tough. Is there anybody else who would like to say something or thoughts?
Dr. Frank,
Yes.
you know, after today, after your presentation, I find that not only my family was dysfunctional, I always thought I have a good family, but we were both, me and my husband, really immature parents. Almost everything you do, we have in the family. How to fix it now?
Oh boy.
When kids is adult and you still wants to communicate with them and show love and respect, but I don't know, it's maybe only me, but we have kids very young. Usually in Russia, we have kids very, very young, and we grow with them. So we not always knew what we're doing, if we're doing it's right or it's wrong. We did what our parents did, and
Yeah.
it was different background, different country, and different approach to everything. But maybe we will all talk with you later how to fix all of this, what we did, what damage we did already to our kids.
Well, most of these cases, see, it always seems like you say the right thing, and if it comes from somebody like me, it sounds really bad, but you said damage, the damage that we've done. That's the truth. There was damage there,
Definitely, if kids do what they do, especially with drugs and chemicals and alcohol, so something was not. What also very was important for me, that most of the kids, it's not only drugs or alcohol, it's underlying mental issues.
Oh, yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah.
Well, look, everything is connected. Everything is connected. Just the little overview that I presented today, we know that yelling and screaming at a child or witnessing abuse or so, it's connected to a dysfunctional development of the brain. Okay, then that is connected to what? That connects us to an inability to deal in social situations, emotional situations. And because we can't deal with that, we turn to drugs. And then the drugs lead to God knows what. You know what I mean? Everything is connected here.
Can we say, I'm so sorry, can we say
go
that
ahead.
90% of kids, our kids who dependent, they all have underlying mental issue? That most of our kids, before they start to use drugs, I mean, this is what Samantha told me, that she got probably issues. She thought it's normal feeling of anxiety and depression. And when she started to use, she started to feel normal. So her use was like fresh air, because she felt so bad when and she started to use like a few years ago, and she started. It's not like she used it 16, 15. No, she was like absolutely fine child. I never pay attention that she may have some mental issue. I never treated with her. So it was never treated, her anxiety, never treated maybe some depression, maybe some bipolar. I don't know, because we scream in the family like crazy from child when she was child. And it's not like it was normal. I never thought it may give such effect to kids, what parents doing when the kids is little. Now, when we try to explain step by step, I said, oh my God, everything you said, we had it. So, and looks like that most of the kids, they look for substance, all chemical substance for relief.
Oh yeah. Yep, they do. Right, it's an
So-
escape. It's an
Yes,
escape, it's a coping mechanism.
They're recovery now. Most of the kids are in recovery. Do we really have to go to specialists like psychiatrists and solve these problems, or let them overgrow and understand what they went through?
You know what I think in that particular case? Sometimes all you need, you don't need a psychologist. Sometimes you need somebody that's going to listen to them and somebody that's going to talk to them. Okay, think about what we do, right? We sit there, we listen, we try to understand. We have, or we try to have this connection, where they feel secure in opening up and talking. Does it have to be somebody like me? No. Could it be somebody else that really cares? Sometimes a best friend, somebody who loves you, somebody who listens to you, is the same as having a psychologist.
No, I'm talking about psychiatrists.
It's the ability to
medication. I'm talking about psychiatrists to have some
you're
medication.
talking about medication.
Yes.
Oh. Well, that's up to how the psychiatrist is interpreting the situation. If there's anxiety and depression, and the psychiatrist thinks that it's it's their brain chemicals that are not being produced, or there's something that's too much that being produced, maybe at that point he'll introduce Zoloft or Xanax or something in order to kind of regulate the chemicals so that they're where they should be. But there's, for example, there's exogenous depression that happens because of how we interpret the environment, versus endogenous depression, how the brain is making certain neurotransmitters. Okay. And yet even that is connected. Okay, so sometimes our interpretation affects the way the brain functions. Okay, so which comes first? That the brain isn't functioning correctly and it's not making the neurotransmitters that it needs, and it's because of that we're not interpreting situations? Or is it the other way around? We're not interpreting situations and it's changing the way our brain is functioning. Okay. Psychiatrists, from my understanding, they're more into, here's like, there's the prescription, go take this,
No, but my question was mainly if kids start to use drugs or alcohol because underlying mental issue, when our kids recovering, the mental issues is still there.
Yeah. Okay. What happens is we first have to kind of clear out the system, because if we don't know what we're dealing with at the time. So, for example, when a client comes into the facility, there's still drugs in their system. They probably used a few hours before. Okay. So what we're observing is the effects of the drug and underlying mental issues together. So in order to understand what the true mental issues are, they have to be completely clean. And that takes about 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, for everything to get out of their system. And what remains, the behavior that remains, is then what we work with. Okay, if they're still anxious, if they're still depressed, if we see that their emotions are dysregulated, then we can say, okay, this is not the drug anymore. Now we know that there's some underlying issues here. And that's really when as you say, the mental health issues surface. And that's then at that point, they go see a psychiatrist because now the psychiatrist can say, he's clean. This is what I'm observing. This has got to be now mental health. This is not drugs anymore. Prior to that, we don't know.
No, I'm not talking about prior. Like kids, for example, somebody clean for 1 year. Like Samantha was clean 9 months. She behaved okay. But now I'm worried. What if she used because she got underlying mental issue? Do I have to now be concerned about some type of medication? Because no more drugs, she functioned okay. But if she used it, something was wrong to begin with.
Yeah.
So how to address this after a lot of, like our moms, the kids clean 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Do we have to concern about still show kids to, I mean, we can't do it, the adults already, but at least advise to see maybe psychiatrist or some consultation, something, you know? It's very interesting because Samantha says, Mom, probably I have bipolar. And Dr. Frank and Victor, they said I had bipolar. Do I have to go now and go for medication or I don't? So I'm confused, you know?
Are you sure that, I mean, you're sure she has bipolar?
I'm not sure because in
You're not
different
sure.
they
Okay.
said they got nothing. It was like, yeah.
It could be that she has nothing. Okay.
No.
It could be, listen, we also have to understand that everybody has their type of personality. Okay. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. You know, if somebody has the type of personality where they're angry all the time and they're ornery and they're this and they're that, that's just who they are. You know, we can't slap a label on them right away. Okay. But maybe in Samantha's case, I mean, if you see that she's depressed or anxious and she's clean, perhaps she does need medication. Maybe that's always a possibility, you know. But then again, you run the risk again with the medication, you know, with medication, and it's still a drug. It's still a drug, you know. And then should she suffer? Or should she take medication? Oh my God, it's horrific.
It's very complicated. Yes,
It's
thank you,
very
Dr. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your help.
Oh no, thank you. Thank you very much. So, okay, so I would imagine that perhaps sometime next month we will get together again. And just write out for me what you'd like for me to talk about, and I'd be more than happy to do a presentation on anything that you're interested in. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I guess we could say goodnight.
May I say thank you very much for clearly showing how what happened in the family can affect